Hello and welcome to the Sherborne Pathway Podcast, Episode 4. I'm Alex Boyd-Williams, and today we're going to be talking about the new sixth form information booklet. I'm joined by a number of guests, both staff and students. I'll turn to the students first of all. We're joined by Ed, who's our upper six member of this team.
Hi, sir.
And Oscar, who's joined the lower six in September this year.
Hi, sir.
Excellent, okay. And also with us from the staff, we have Dr. Tim Filtness, our Deputy Head Academic.
Hello.
We have Ms. Kant, our Head of English.
Hello.
And Mr. Foyle, our Head of Geography.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. So we're going to be having a good chat, a good conversation about the booklet and particularly about the sixth form and the information that we feel boys joining the sixth form and parents of boys joining the sixth form need to know about. Dr. Phillips, I'm going to go to you first. What do you think of the sort of things, given the decades of experience that you have, parents and boys need to sort of know at this stage of the year?
That's a really good question. I think probably the main thing for me is to not think too much about where the subjects go. Quite often when I'm talking to boys, they've planned out the whole of the rest of their life, and that's brilliant and that's fantastic. But things change, and usually the A-levels that you do don't really have that much of an impact on what you do at university and what you do beyond. So my piece of advice to boys is to think more about what do you enjoy, what are you good at, what kinds of skills do you have, do you like exams, do you like coursework, those kind of questions, rather than things like, when I'm 50, when do I want to retire, and how much money would I like to earn. These questions are important, but I don't think they're necessarily the big drivers for choosing your sixth form subjects.
What a sage response. Thank you for that. I find myself very much agreeing with you, and I think we see from week to week, from year to year, the pupils who do well and the pupils who are happy have generally chosen subjects, as you say, that they are interested in. And it doesn't, what we change, don't we? As human beings, we change. What we're interested in when we're 16 may not be, what rocks our world when we're 30, when we're 40, and so on. But choosing what you're interested in right here, right now, is a really good way forward. So thank you for that.
Thank you. Your point about happiness, I think, is probably the most important thing for boys listening to take away. If you're happy, you're going to be successful. Those sit hand in glove. So choose things that are going to make you happy in an academic way.
Thank you. I'm going to go to Ed now. Ed, can you tell us a little bit, how the subjects you do and how you were, your journey towards choosing those subjects and how that's all worked out?
Definitely. So I do English, art and philosophy. And I think what Dr. Filtness was talking about is really important. I think sometimes boys get really concerned that, if I choose this subject, it's going to limit my options when I go to university, or it's going to limit the careers that I can have. But I actually think that, I guess the antithesis is true. I think that if you choose subjects that you enjoy and that you're good at, then yes, you might, with my A-levels, I might not be able to become a doctor, but because I don't enjoy maths and science, that's not a problem for me. It's not a career that I'm, interested in now. So the limitations that came with any A-levels I chose didn't really affect me. And then I think for me, it was mainly just choosing subjects that I enjoyed and choosing subjects that I was good at. But I think mainly the happiness factor is what was kind of in it for me. Was it a difficult decision-making process that you went through? Can you tell us a bit, can we dig in a little bit to your experience, and maybe you can talk about your work experience that you sort of went on and how that perhaps also affected your decision making? Definitely. I'm quite indecisive in general, so I really struggled when I was trying to make my decisions. I started thinking about it quite early, and what I did is I just started off crossing the subjects that I didn't want to do. So I knew that I didn't want to do maths, for example, so I just crossed that off the list, and that made it a lot easier because then I could see what I was working with. And then you talked about my work experience. I thought for a bit that I wanted to become a vet, and so I guess I was kind of falling into that trap of trying to work out what A-levels to do based on the career I wanted to do. So I did vet work experience. I was supposed to do a week, and I ended up only doing a day because I hated it. It was a good experience, right? Definitely. I definitely recommend doing it. But and there are people who are going to be. We need vets. We need vets in the world. Yes, yeah.
But probably not going to be you.
Not me,
And
definitely
because,
not.
why is that, Ed? What was it about the experience that turned you off?
I mean, I admire vets so much more after
Yeah.
doing it, but I came in and they threw me into theatre straight away, and just seeing the kind of, I won't go into detail, but the gruesome aspects of that, hearing the dogs crying in the background, it was quite traumatic.
There's a lot of death in that.
A
in that
lot of
particular
death,
world.
yes.
Yeah, and say, respect to vets, we need them amazing.
Definitely.
But if that
For me,
wasn't for
that
you,
wasn't it.
and it seems that you're a good guy, Ed. I know you, and I've really enjoyed getting to know you over the last year or so. And you give someone your service is important to you, but it's about figuring out, okay, it's not that particular pathway, but I'm still interested in this kind of aspect of life, and of giving service to others, and there are all sorts of avenues you could go down in that respect.
You've made such an important point there about work experience as well. I think that's amazing. You could have, in theory, gone all the way through your sixth form and then come to the conclusion, in your first year at university. So again, for boys listening, the power of actually experiencing the thing that you think you might do can be transformative. For you, it was transformative in a way that shut down a couple of options. I've heard similar stories from boys who've gone and done the thing that they think they might be interested in, loved it, and it's been a real kind of motivator for them to go and do the things that they want to do. So thank you for that, Ed.
Yeah, I wanted to be a barrister because I'd seen few good men, and so I did some work experience in Cardiff Crown Court. The barrister was wearing a wig, didn't look like Tom Cruise, didn't walk around with a baseball bat. It was, and also it was a really dull case. And the guy who's a barrister, he was great in many ways, and again, huge respect and loads of knowledge. We need barristers in the world. But he said to me, if this isn't interesting you, this is not, the will for you. And I kept sort of slipping off to the cafe, and he could see my heart wasn't in it. But it was, again, really, really good experience to do that. So I think that's, as excellent that this booklet is, probably not going to answer every question, but work experience might be a really good sort of part of the decision-making process. Oscar, can we go to you now? Did you have your hand up there, Mr.
I was just going to say, I think the point you've made is absolutely fabulous. And as someone that has done a different career and sort of halfway through it realised that it just wasn't the right thing for me, I'm often asked, why did I change career? And I was formerly a surveyor before as a teacher. And the bottom line answer is I found no value in what I did. And I know there are lots of people out there that are surveyors and find a huge amount of value. Many of my extended relatives are surveyors, and that's brilliant. But for me, I just found no value in what I was doing, and ultimately the motivation to do it died. So I think, linking to what you've said, if the number of people I speak to who say, I want to be X or Y, and you say, well, do you know what that involves day to day, the actual nitty gritty? And now you can go and do that and think this is brilliant, this is exactly what I thought it was. Or you could go and do that and realize, actually, whoa, wait a minute, this is way off what I thought I was into, and it'll open up the door for something else. And I suspect you're now onto something that's totally different, but you do find value in, which I think is brilliant. So.
And also to add to that, thank you, Mr. Forfeit. We all go, it's a metaphor we use, but we go on a journey, and that's part of the deal, isn't it, in life? It's very rare now, and maybe it's always been the case where you do one thing and that's it, and you don't change and you don't shift, and but certainly in the world we are now, that's to be able to shift is something that's much more achievable than it ever has been, and that's exciting, and that's a really good thing. But all the more reason to do what you're interested in the present, right here, right now, because that's probably going to change.
Yeah, totally.
Oscar, let's hear from you, and let's hear about your journey.
Yeah, no, well, my journey was quite interesting because my parents are quite old-fashioned and they weren't for BTECs, and I think that is still quite a big thing, that people do see BTECs less than or less important than it. It's not, it's equal. And I think the most important advice I was given by Miss Clayton is do what you enjoy, because if you don't do what you enjoy, you just don't want to do it. I started with politics, I did it for a week, and I knew it wasn't for me. I just knew, no, this isn't for me. And I swapped to economics. I did work experience in London at Price Forbes, an insurance broker, and that's what made me want to do that, go down the economics route. Also, I was very fortunate to have Mr. O'Donnell in house, so I could talk to him about it, and he was like, I think you could do it. and also did well in maths. But I just think it's interesting, your A-levels, because unlike GCSEs, you're forced to do them. You have a choice to do A-levels. You have a choice even, to leave school. You're making these decisions of what you want to do. And by making those decisions, you have to know and commit. Because if you don't, it's just not for you. And if you don't like what you're doing, just swap generally. It's never, unless if you leave it too late, then you can't, and then you're stuck, and then you'll get a C or a D because you won't enjoy it.
Huge relief you just said
that. 100% swap.
But no, it's such a good point, and we're aware that this decision-making process we're talking about could be for many of our pupils and also the parents and families. One of the most challenging decision-making processes that they've yet gone through, and so it is a big deal, and we are here to help.
You made a lot of good points there, Oscar. Thank you. One that I would pick up on is to just echo what you said about swapping. So for a lot of boys feel pressure at this point to choose the right things, and as we've been saying, people change, and sometimes you're not even sure what the things are that when you choose them. So you can change your mind, and lots of boys do. And if you do feel that you would like to change your mind, that's okay. That's absolutely okay. I've usually kind of compared it to, meeting people for the first time. That usually, if you meet someone within a few days of knowing them, you know whether they're going to be someone there's a friendship there. Equally, the opposite's true as well. That if they're not going to be your best mate. And it's kind of difficult to describe that. It's more instinctual. It's a gut feel. For what it's worth, I think you have the same experience when you go and visit a place, say for example for university, that you get there and you think, yeah, this is me, or no, this is not. So A-levels and BTECs are the same. If you get a week in and you think, this is not me, it probably isn't. And that's okay, and you're allowed to swap. So thank you for bringing that up, Oscar.
Just to echo what you're saying, Oscar, that was the same thing that I experienced with my A-levels, that I was originally doing French for one of my choices because at GCSE I went, I'm pretty good at it and it will be useful to me. I'm not a natural linguist and I didn't love it. My passion was drama. And within a week, just like you, I sat there and went, I really shouldn't be here. This is not bringing me any joy. And I went to the drama department and never looked back. So, you're right, do what you enjoy.
No, the only other thing I'd echo is the teacher and the subject are two different matters. There are teachers at the start that you will not like, it's a fact, and there's teachers that you'll love. And I think me and Dr. Filtness with biology had that relationship at the start, but it was a subject I had to do.
We're going deep in this podcast. I'm loving that. We're talking about relationships now.
It was not the best, relationship, but it built. I improved, I sat down, I realised I had to commit differently and my work started to improve and Dr. Filtness, so then it got better. And at the start and the end, there'll be two different relationships you'll have with your teacher. So you have to build it, and just because you don't like someone, it's not a reason to give up.
But thanks, Oscar. I seem to remember you did really well in the end.
Yeah, no, I did. And I was really happy. No, but it was just at the start, I was scared of Dr. Filtness, to probably be honest, but it was like, I shouldn't have been. And I probably
inside. As we know.
After
let's move on.
Yeah. But what's interesting, you're smart, Oscar. You're bright. You're doing 2 A-levels and a BTEC course, and that is the reality for many of our very bright students. So the point you made about BTECs being thought of by some as inferior is just not the case, and we're huge fans of BTECs at school, in the sixth form, on this podcast. And the fact that a distinction star in a BTEC is worth the same as an A-star at A-level for nearly all universities is really significant. And also, employers are well aware that the group skills you gain on a BTEC course, the fact that it's so aligned to the world of employment, and we have a podcast on this, so episode 3, check it out. But BTEC, I think a hybrid of a BTEC and A-level program, it would be one really enjoyable but really, really useful.
100%, yeah.
Also, so we're going to hear more from Ms. Count and Mr. Fullner. Before we do, Dr. Philson, I wanted to just ask you, what preparation do we give boys coming into the sixth form? Obviously the booklet's great and they can read that, but what else do we provide at the school to help them with their decision making?
Well, as we've heard from Oscar, we generally try and terrify them. That's my strategy for most of the lower school. Being serious, the preparation is ongoing. So it's not the case that there's kind of one day and everyone sits down and they are given information. In fact, probably the information is only really a tiny fraction of it. There's definitely a finding out phase. And the more I can encourage boys to kind of take that on themselves, as well as relying on the information and the opportunities that the school gives them, the better. So, if you're listening to this in the fourth form, for example, please start thinking about it now. You don't have to wait until January of your fifth form. Formally, there is an options fair, which is a good opportunity, if you haven't done so already, to just go and talk to teachers and, just as importantly, boys about all the subjects on offer. It's a couple of hours, and it really is what you make of it. So I'd really encourage you to use the full time and to just ask all the questions. Have a think about the things that you haven't considered. That's really, I think, probably the main use of it. Keep an open mind. Don't just go to the economics stage because that's a subject you're going to do. Go and have a look at something you've never looked at before. There are various assemblies, again, touching on new subjects. So there are 8 brand new subjects in the sixth form that no one's ever done before. So, how could you possibly know what that's like? Go and have a look. We also do taster sessions, so everyone has a chance to sign up to 4, I'm going to call them lessons, but they're slightly different from lessons, to give you a taster of what that subject actually is. And they come a bit later on. There are interviews with your tutor, although please don't think that that's a session and that's the only time you get support. The support's ongoing. And similarly, there are various kind of interviews and drop-in sessions from the careers team. And I know, Mr. Boyd-Williams, you keep an open door throughout the whole term, really. So there's a lot on. That's the take-home message. But I think for me, if you are listening, please don't wait for those things to come up. Get stuck in. Ed's point about work experience as well is relevant here. Go out and find.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Cant, can we hear from you, please, and your thoughts about what might help the boys and their parents with the decision-making process, particularly from your point of view as a head of English?
I always think that one of the things that, especially with my subject, and I mean, Ed, you're an A-level English student, is that don't presume because you've done the subject at GCSE that you know what that syllabus is going to be or what that curriculum is. Especially, for example, with English, what we do at GCSE is completely different to what we do at A-level. And at A-level, it's, I think, quite an interesting course. It's very different, especially, for example, English language, which we offer in the enrichment block. That English language at GCSE, I'm going to commit heresy here and say it's a little bit dull. And then you get to A-level. I know, I can't believe I said that. And then at A-level, what we're actually doing is we're looking at the way we talk and how does that change based upon power dynamics and how do children actually learn to speak, and all these different aspects of it. So do have that conversation with the teachers and find out more. But also then look at the way that those lessons are done in terms of, for example, if you don't enjoy writing essays, maybe something like English or dare I say history might not be the kind of thing you want to do. Do you like more practical things? If so, what subjects do those practical elements? I mean, I imagine the same thing for you in geography as well.
Yeah, I think so. I think, without wishing to dive straight in with the extended writing things, but when it comes to sixth form, extended writing is something you have to do. But to go back to the very beginning of the conversation, for me, front and centre to it all is, do you find the subject interesting? And if you can go into geography or any subject, I think it applies to every subject, if you can go into that subject with a genuine interest about what you're going to do, things like extended writing can be taught and we can help you with those skills and we can develop those, and actually you will have been developing them throughout your school career anyway. But yes, I think there is definitely if extended writing is something that you really is not for you, then you have to go into it with your eyes wide open that is a large part of what you might be doing at geography or perhaps any other extended writing subject. But you can get your head around that if, when the chips are down, you're studying a place that you find truly fascinating and you're thinking that you may visit it one day, or perhaps you've been there on holiday and you're learning more about it, or you're wanting to know why it's shaped the way it is, or why the people live the way they do, and all these sorts of things. If you're going in it with that curiosity, the rest will take care of itself. And that's kind of for me, is always front and centre of what should inform your choice.
I completely agree with you about the there are skills that can be taught, and does it sustain your interest? Because one of the great joys about the sixth form, and I imagine the boys can find this, is that additional time that appears in the timetable and the study periods, that there's more scope to do the independent study, to be looking into the areas that particularly interest you, and to be doing more around, for example, with English, reading and watching theatrical adaptations and thinking about how our understanding of a text has changed over time. And if you're actually passionate about the subject, that is not, I've got this work to do. It becomes something actually enjoyable and something you want to be doing. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, boys, you're the ones actually having to do that.
Yeah, definitely. I also think you all were kind of mentioning about like preconceived judgments when going into a subject. So what you were talking about with GCSE, expecting maybe the A-level course to be the same. And I think for me, when I was thinking back to like my subject journey across the whole school, when I joined in third form, I thought, right, I'm in an academic school, I'm going to do academic subjects, I'm not going to do art anymore. So I chose Latin, and then I hated that, so I switched to art, and this was just in the third form. So and then when it came to thinking about GCSEs, I was like, right, no more art, academic subjects. And then I did art for GCSE, and then I thought, right, no more art, academic subjects for A-level, and now I'm doing art. So I think not just like making sure you get rid of any like preconceived judgments or any initial ideas you had when you're going into thinking about subject choices is really important.
It's a fabulous point. It links back to what Dr. Filtness was saying at the beginning, and you go with what you love right there in front of you, not sort of with the now in mind, not the end in mind, and you will make a success of it. Mm-hmm. And as a fellow A-level artist student, I totally understand where you're coming from. So I think that's absolutely key.
Do you enjoy art, Ed?
Love art.
That's enough, isn't it?
Yeah.
That alone is enough. And also it's such a nonsense to, and someone who's studied drama over the years, you get some really bad advice with people saying, that will lead to nothing. It's just nonsense. And some people who do drama do very well financially if that's some sort of sign of success. But you do it because you love it. And if you love it, as we've been talking about, in the present, in that moment in time, and that's going to serve you and your own personal development regarding about who you see yourself and your place in the world and what you want to tap into, then that is just that's the holy grail, isn't it? That's where the glory lies. And if to do something just because you think it's good for you, that might not be enough. That said, when we've been talking about writing skills, it may be that I've heard from pupils I've really respected over the years that I'm choosing to do history. I find it really difficult. Or I'm choosing to do English literature. I find it really difficult. But in order to do this particular job in the future, which I think I want to do, I need to do it. And so I'm finding it difficult, but difficult's kind of good. And I always find it really cool when people say that just because they find it hard doesn't mean it's bad. And they find it hard, but they still kind of enjoy it because they know it's going to give them the skills they need. So writing's difficult, and good writers, if we're talking about finance, they can get paid a heck of a lot of money. Not such, very good writers can be poor, but at the same time, having these skills can be just a huge life skill and give you enormous power as well to be able to write with skill and to be able to write with a command of a language.
Yeah, it must be. There's a study, and I can't remember the name of who it was, but it's all about resilience. The book is called Grit.
Angela Duckworth.
That's exactly it, Duckworth. And she talked about a pyramid of sort of things you need to do to get where you want to. Now, some of those those structures on that pyramid will be wholly in line with what you love and enjoy, and there'll be other parts of that you kind of have to do, but you might not like doing, but will get you to where you want to be. So it might be, I don't know, maths, for example, was a subject that I quite struggled with, but I knew I kind of had to keep chipping away at it because it was something I needed to do, and and it would it all built into that broader kind of goal. And I think there's a big piece to be said about sort of, particularly in GCSEs, where you can see the chips down, like, well, I'm not going to study maths because I don't, or I'm not going to, I'm going to be using that later. It's like, well, actually, it all fits in, and there's a large part about just that resilience of sticking with it because it's part of a sort of a broader picture of what you want to achieve or where you want to get to.
Yeah, so it's sort of like medicine. It may not be tasty, but it will make you better.
Yeah.
Sometimes there's, we talked a little bit about bad advice, and might receive some bad advice like, don't do drama. That's a bad thing to do, and that was certainly something I'm proud to say I ignored at the time. And over time, I've sort of moved away from that world, but I'm really grateful that I had that experience, because with doing theatre or doing art, it's a creative subject, or creative media design like yourself, Oscar. You have to work with people a lot, and that's a good life skill, and that's difficult. But the idea of having a vision and being able to see something through and making something happen, knowing you can do that through drama is, I think, really empowering and really exciting and really useful in all sorts of works of life. Anything, Ed and Oscar, you feel that, we've been talking about asking questions and ask lots of questions. Boys in your house, boys in the sixth form, ask them questions, ask your teachers questions. You mentioned talking with Mr. O'Donnell as well and getting that information. But anything you think boys perhaps should be wary of if people say, what might be coming across as good advice, but actually you feel from your experience isn't necessarily good advice? And we don't need to name names, but
no, of course I won't name names. The only thing I'd say is a balance. I'd say the majority of people at Sherborne tend to do 2 written, exam A levels, and then 1 more coursework based. And I think for the majority of students that brings a balance, and then it gives the view though that you have to do a more coursework. You don't. I know there's a person in my year who at the minute is doing 4 A levels, and for me that would be too much, but he's enjoying it and he's enjoying what he's doing, and maybe he will keep going and do these 4 A levels. That's because he has the determination to do that for himself, and I think that's amazing. And I'd say the biggest person you can listen to is yourself. If you know you can do it, then do it. What's stopping you? No one's in your way. If you believe you can do something and you work at it, you'll get there.
That's a really valuable thing you said, I think, because what works is what works. Yeah. And we've been given some contradictory advice to some extent, sort of do what you love, but sometimes you need to do something that's hard because it's going to help you get what you love. So going back to what you said, I think it is a very unique decision. And there are a lot of people here at the school, your housemaster, your teachers, your tutor, the careers team who want to support you with that decision-making process. Yeah, Dr. Philness.
The bad advice point, I think there are 3 things for me here that quite often come up, and often they're questions from parents. Be wary of change, particularly to the A-level syllabi and the BTEC syllabi. So that the landscape when I started teaching, how did you put it, Alex, a couple of decades ago, was thanks for that, was very dirty. Yeah, it's a lot of days. Was completely different. So the A-levels that are around now just are not the same as the situation, even, to be honest, even 10 years ago. So beware of old information, because it's just not reliable. And the second thing is, again, people sometimes ask me, what are the easy subjects and what are the hard subjects? What subjects are respected by universities and what subjects implicitly are not? We don't do soft options. We wouldn't be serving the boys who study here and their parents if we offered things that no one respected. So the easy answer to that one is everything is of equal weight and equal merit. And please, if you are thinking along those lines, don't, because it's just not helpful to you. And the third thing is that, in my little list of bad advice is don't look at results, because they're meaningless, because they're not about you, they're about other people. And it's really easy to look at which subjects performed the best and which subject hasn't, and jump to completely the wrong conclusion. So, for example, a couple of years ago, Greek A-level had 100% A star. So by that measure, it was the best performing subject. Don't get me wrong, Greek is a really good subject, and and I'm not disrespecting the teachers or the boys who study it, but the point is only one boy in that year did it. Whereas actually there were way loads more A stars in other subjects and better measures. It's notoriously really difficult to get an A star in a modern foreign language. So if the A star level is lower there, that doesn't mean it's harder or it's easier or whatever. It's just different. And you shouldn't read too much into historically the results from other years. And we're back to the same where we started, which is do the things that you like, and not the things that you feel are going to generate the best results because they've got statistically in previous years the best profile.
Yeah, I think just to add to that, from a careers and pathways point of view, Russell universities still have that strong brand, and they're very good. They're really good. But there are lots of really great universities that are not part of the Russell Group, and I think it's important to keep an open mind, looking at what might be the best pathway. And that uni also may not be in the UK, and also uni may not be the right pathway for you. You might want to go straight into the world of work. You might have a great idea that could gain investment, and you could become an entrepreneur at the age of 18. So I think it's about keeping an open mind and not doing something that was the tradition and what was the accepted correct thing to do 20 years ago. Anything else to add to that, team?
Just to add on what you're saying about thinking, especially moving on to thinking about universities and things, but in our subject, if a boy comes to me and says, I really want to be a writer, where should I be going? And people sometimes do a little eyebrow raise, but the best course to be on is the one at UEA. So going to East Anglia. Yeah. And occasionally people are like, really? But that is such an incredible course to be on. And we're very fortunate that we've had 2 boys be accepted onto that in the last couple of years. But, make sure that you think about, just because it is considered the traditional route, it's not necessarily the right path. And I think all of you, like we've all been saying, know yourself better than anyone else. Trust your judgment, trust your gut.
Yeah. And with UEA, you might think, well, why would I want to go and live in East Anglia? But that particular course you're talking about, you could Google it. It's recognised the best in the world, not just the best in the UK. And writers like Ian McEwan, Keju Guru, they went there, and they would still say they owe their success, they owe their the skill they have, their craft, to what they learnt at that time at UEA. So it's a really great point. And if you talk about best uni in the UK for property, Reading's most likely to come at the top of that list. That's not a Russell Group university, but it's just a fantastic university. Alumni of Reading here at the table, but a great university with particular strengths in particular subjects. Anything else, Ed?
I think the only other thing I was going to talk about is like subject combinations, because that was something that kind of concerned me when I was thinking about my A levels. I was thinking, are these subjects going to fit? Because after going through the trauma of vet work experience, I was able to narrow down my idea to kind of be in like the law, journalism, Englishy, philosophy sector, and so I obviously knew that I wanted to do English and philosophy at that point, but then I was like, will art kind of clash with those, or does that combination make sense? And I mean, a lot of other people do it, but that was something that worried me at the time. And I think that, to be honest, if it works for you, then, and if that combination works for you, then I don't think there's anything wrong in choosing that combination necessarily. Yeah. I don't know if that goes against your advice, but
no.
It's absolutely second what you've just said.
Same year as Ed, when I swapped from politics to economics, I was told, Ruben's business economics is not the best combination. I booked a careers appointment, talked about it, we called some universities, absolutely fine. It was more just a worry in my head. The only other thing I'd like to say is about what Dr. Filner said about the easiest subjects. The easiest subjects are the ones that you're going to enjoy the most. I think it's like plain and simple. no matter you're different for who you are.
Yeah.
But like the ones you enjoy the most will be the ones that you find the easiest because you want to do it.
Wise words, Oscar.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, Miss Foyle.
Well, just one brief thing I would add, I think, in terms of getting to know your subject a bit more, or maybe the subject you might want to do at A level and sixth form. A big shout out to societies and to competitions and to just getting stuck in with those. We had Geography Society earlier today. We had a third former there together with a bunch of upper sixth boys. What an amazing way to get an insight to what a subject is like, just sitting down discussing with a bunch of people that are just interested in that subject, whether it's geography or philosophy or any other subject, just having those conversations. So I would encourage anyone to go along to those societies, not because they just want to sort of say they've done a society, but actually go on to it ready to discuss something, ready to ask questions, ready to find out more. And added to that, I would also encourage people to get stuck into these competitions. These competitions are amazing, and they are designed to appeal to young people. We've got, sort of flying the geography flag for a second, we've got the Young Geog for the Year competition, you've got the GA competition for, specifically targeted at sort of year 10 and 11 and year 9 as well. Getting stuck into those competitions will be, or could be, that thing that goes, hang on a minute, this is something really interesting. And that might just be the thing that lights the fire for you.
Yeah.
So I'd emphasise those two kind of options.
That's a great point. And students at Sherborne are blessed. There's so much on doorsteps in terms of clubs and activities, societies, events. Last week we launched the first business breakfast, which takes place on Tuesday morning, 7:45, once a month, and there'll be 2 or 3 businessmen or women. It could be local entrepreneurs, parents, alumni, who'll be talking about what they've done, and often it might be that you realise when they're talking about their story that they studied a particular subject levels, they might have studied geography, and that inspired them to go down a particular route, and that might make a connection with a particular student. So there's so much on the doorstep to get involved with, and when you're applying for jobs or applying for university, they won't want to know what you did in your A-level or BTEC subjects. They want to know what you did outside of them. So it's really important you do extra stuff and find stuff that interests you and chuck everything at it. Just to finish, I thought it would be great if we could have some advice in no more than 10 words of sort of anything you think is really important you'd like to impart on those listening. Ed, you start, please.
Oh, gosh. Okay.
You got
10 words or less.
Yeah.
Okay.
Biggest takeaway.
I feel like it's a bit cliche, and I don't want to be cliche, but it's like the thing that made me. It was like the fundamental point that I chose my A-levels on, and I have no regrets, and it's just do what you love. And I think it might get repeated a lot, but I think it's true.
That might be very, very useful to many listeners, so thank you for that. Oscar?
I'd say you know yourself better than anyone. Yeah, that would be my thing, my takeaway, yeah.
Love it, thank you. Dr. Villas?
Don't stress too much about it. There are no wrong choices.
Thank you. Miss Cat?
At the end of the day, it's your A-levels, so trust yourself.
Thank you. Mr. Foyle?
Yeah, this won't be over 10 words, but anyway, along the lines of, without repeating what we've said already, but focus on the now and not what you might want it to be in the future. The now is what matters.
Yeah, thank you. I just thinking before I get this is my 10 words, by the way. But if you are concerned and you're worried, I might need to do this particular subject if I want to get on this course, or I'm worried my son needs this, subject needs to do further maths if he wants to be. Just ask us, and we're happy from the careers department to contact universities and just get clarification on. So you don't want to be in a situation where you're applying for universities in your upper sixth year and you realise, oh, you should have done that. I had one student once who wanted to study English literature at university, but she didn't choose English literature A level, and that was a real problem. So, do please. My advice is start talking about it. Lots. That's it. So thank you very much, everyone. Really enjoyed our conversation. Really grateful to you for coming along today, and I hope that sparks lots of conversations amongst the boys in houses and with families, so we can have some really happy boys making some really confident decisions which lead them to enjoy a really happy and fruitful sixth form life in which they thrive and go on to make a very positive difference to the world. Thank you.